The galaxy was once a peaceful place, a network of systems and species living side by side. But everything changed when the unseen appeared. No one knew who or what they were, just that they arrived like a storm, leaving devastation in their wake. Their ships were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, silent, swift, and deadly. Whole planets vanished without a trace, entire civilizations wiped out in a matter of hours. The few who survived spoke of horrors too terrible to believe. The galaxy's leaders convened in a desperate council, trying to figure out how to stop this new threat. But every species, even the most powerful, hesitated. Some were too divided, fighting among themselves for control over the galaxy. Others were too frightened, unwilling to risk everything in a battle against something so unknown and mysterious. Even the most advanced civilizations were afraid. And soon, there was no one left to turn to. As the weeks passed, hope faded. The unseen were unstoppable, and many believed it was only a matter of time before the entire galaxy would fall under their shadow. Then one day, a signal came through. It was faint at first, almost like static in the vast emptiness of space. But as it grew stronger, it became clear. It was a distress call, but not from any known species. It was from humans, a species that had only recently joined the galactic community. At first, no one took it seriously. Humans were a relatively young species in the galactic order. They had no powerful allies, no advanced technology like the other civilizations. How could they possibly help? Yet, as the transmission continued, the message was clear. Humans were offering their help. They were not afraid of the unseen. They were ready to fight. The message was short but full of determination. We are humans. We have faced the impossible before, and we will do it again. If no one else will stand up, we will. The leaders of the galaxy were skeptical. Who were these humans to speak with such confidence? They were small in number compared to the great powers of the galaxy. Their ships were no match for the might of the unseen. But there was something about the message that stirred something deep within them. Something that they had long forgotten. Hope. The humans had always been known for their resilience, their ability to survive against all odds. But this was different. This wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a fight for the galaxy itself. With little more than their determination, humans set course to meet the enemy. The galaxy watched in silence as their ships, old but sturdy, began their journey toward the unknown. The humans knew the risks, but they also knew that without action, everything would be lost. As they left the safety of their world, they didn't just carry weapons and technology. They carried something more, something that no one else seemed to have. The drive to do what others would not. And perhaps that was exactly what the galaxy needed. As the humans' fleet neared the front lines, a strange silence settled over the galaxy. No one knew what to expect. Many still doubted that these newcomers could make a difference. They were still a young species, without the deep histories or vast empires that the other galactic civilizations boasted. Yet, despite the doubts, humans pressed on, their ships cutting through space with unwavering determination. The fleet consisted of only a few dozen ships, each one a testament to human ingenuity. Unlike the sleek, advanced vessels of the other species, the human ships were a mix of old designs and newer, experimental technologies. They were not as fast, nor as powerful, but they had something the others lacked, an unshakable resolve. When the humans arrived at the war zone, the sight before them was overwhelming. The unseen were everywhere. Their ships, like shadows, moved effortlessly across the void, striking without warning and disappearing before anyone could react. The galaxy's greatest fleets had tried and failed to hold them back. Entire fleets had been lost in the blink of an eye. The human fleet, though small, didn't hesitate. They deployed into formation, despite the odds stacked against them. The galaxy's leaders watched from a distance, skeptical of what the humans could do. Many believed this was nothing more than a suicide mission. The humans were too outnumbered, too underprepared to face the might of the unseen. But then something unexpected happened. The humans fought in a way no one had ever seen before. They didn't rely on brute force or overwhelming numbers. They fought with precision, speed, and a fearlessness that surprised even their allies. The humans used their old, outdated ships in ways the other species couldn't understand. They darted and weaved through the shadows, hitting the unseen with sudden, sharp strikes. It wasn't the way a battle was usually fought in the galaxy, but it was working. As the human ships engaged the unseen, they quickly realized that these alien forces were not invincible. The unseen had the power to manipulate the environment around them, to phase in and out of reality, making them almost impossible to target. But the humans, ever resourceful, adapted quickly. They used their smaller, more agile ships to outmaneuver their enemies, dodging attacks and laying traps that the unseen were unprepared for. The galaxy's leaders, watching in disbelief, started to see the humans' tactics in action. Their unconventional strategies were beginning to break through the unseen's defenses. The first few skirmishes were small victories, but to the humans, each one was a step closer to defeating this terrifying force. The humans didn't have the advanced technology of the other species, but they made up for it with something else. Their ability to think outside the box, to rely on their creativity and willpower when the situation seemed impossible. They fought not just with weapons, but with their minds, finding weaknesses and exploiting them. After the first series of battles, some of the galaxy's leaders began to believe. The humans weren't just fighting to survive. They were fighting to win. And maybe, just maybe, they could turn the tide of this war. As the war against the unseen continued, the galaxy's fragile alliances began to shift. Humans, once seen as an untested species, had quickly earned respect through their courage and unconventional methods. But as the battles grew more intense, the stakes became higher. It was clear that no single species could defeat the unseen alone. The war was taking its toll, and the galaxy needed more than just small victories. It needed unity. The unseen's relentless attacks left planets shattered, civilizations on the brink of extinction. Every day brought new horror stories from the front lines, of entire colonies disappearing without a trace. The fear of the unknown enemy was palpable, and yet the galaxy's leaders still struggled to set aside their old grudges. For centuries, different species had fought amongst themselves, each one believing their way of life was superior. Now, in the face of an enemy that showed no mercy, that same pride and mistrust threatened to tear them apart. The humans knew that if the galaxy didn't unite, they would all fall. The humans had always been a species of survival, but they also understood the value of working together. They had learned long ago that no matter how strong an individual was, it was unity that made a species truly powerful. So they took it upon themselves to bridge the gap between the fractured civilizations of the galaxy. At first, it wasn't easy. The leaders of the other species were hesitant. Some saw the humans as just a temporary solution, nothing more than a hopeful distraction. Others feared that aligning with the humans would mean losing their own power, but the humans didn't give up. They sent ambassadors, offering not just technology and weapons, but a vision of a united galaxy, one where different species could coexist, where cooperation wasn't a sign of weakness, but a strength. The humans led by example. They opened their military ranks to all species, giving them equal footing in the fight. They shared their knowledge, their tactics, and their resources without reservation. Slowly, the distrust began to fade, and one by one, the other species joined the cause. The human-led alliance, now stronger than ever, became a symbol of hope, a living example of what could be achieved when species put aside their differences for a common purpose. But unity didn't come without a cost. Old tensions didn't vanish overnight, and many leaders still harbored deep-seated fears and suspicions. There were arguments, clashes, and moments when it seemed like the alliance would fall apart. Trust was fragile, and every setback in the war was met with renewed doubt. The humans, however, were steadfast. They never wavered in their belief that unity was the key to victory. Even as the war intensified and the casualties mounted, the humans worked tirelessly to keep the alliance together. They understood that the price of peace was sacrifice. Many humans fell in battle, their lives offered for the greater good. But with every loss, the alliance grew stronger, bound by a shared sense of purpose and the understanding that their survival depended on the survival of each other. In time, the galaxy began to change. The divisions that once seemed impossible to bridge started to disappear. The humans had not only led the fight against the unseen, they had brought the galaxy together, showing that unity, though difficult, was the only path to victory. The galaxy's leaders, once unwilling to cooperate, now stood together as one. And in this unity, the galaxy found its hope. The moment had come. The humans, now leading an alliance of many species, were about to face the unseen in their first major battle. The tension was unbearable. The enemy had already devastated countless worlds, and now the combined forces of the galaxy would try to stop them. It was a fight for survival, not just for humans, but for all life in the galaxy. The battlefield stretched across a massive stretch of space. The unseen ships, dark and ghostly, appeared to move without sound, silently hovering in the vast emptiness. Their ships were different from anything anyone had ever seen. They could phase in and out of reality, making it almost impossible to predict their movements. Their weapons were powerful, capable of disintegrating entire ships in seconds. Against such an enemy, the galaxy's finest fleets had already suffered heavy losses. The human fleet, though smaller, stood firm. They had learned quickly in previous skirmishes how to fight the unseen, using their agility and speed to their advantage. The humans didn't rely on brute force, as many other species did. Instead, they used their older ships in clever ways, making up for their lack of advanced technology with creative strategies. As the battle began, the human ships darted into action. Their small, fast vessels scattered in every direction, zigzagging through space like a swarm of angry wasps. The unseen, not used to such unpredictable movements, struggled to keep up. The human ships used old but reliable technology, such as signal jammers and decoys, to confuse the enemy. For a moment, it seemed as if the humans might actually stand a chance. But the unseen were not to be underestimated. They quickly adapted, shifting tactics and countering the human maneuvers. The galaxy's forces had to adjust as well, and fast. While the humans held their own, the battle soon turned into a brutal, high-stakes clash of skill and will. The unseen's ability to phase in and out of reality made them nearly impossible to hit, and they unleashed devastating strikes against the Allied ships. The human ships were hit, but they didn't back down. Instead, they used their small size and speed to avoid direct confrontation, focusing on hitting weak points. They targeted the enemy's energy sources and tried to disable their phasing technology. The humans' tactics were unpredictable, throwing the unseen off balance. It wasn't just about technology or firepower. It was about determination. The humans didn't fight for glory or power. They fought to protect their homes, their families, and the future of the galaxy. That spirit was something the unseen couldn't understand, and it made all the difference. As the battle wore on, the humans managed to strike a small but significant blow. A few of the unseen ships began to falter, their phasing abilities disrupted by the human tactics. The humans, though outmatched in technology, were proving that their willpower and ability to adapt made them formidable opponents. They had shown the unseen that they were not afraid, that they were willing to fight and to win. The battle was far from over, but this first encounter was a turning point. The galaxy's leaders, watching from afar, began to realize that perhaps the humans were not just the last hope. They might be the key to defeating the unseen after all. And as the human ships pulled back, having given all they had, there was a spark of hope in the hearts of the galaxy's people. This war could be won if they all stood together. The first battle had shown the galaxy something unexpected. The humans, though smaller and less advanced in terms of technology, had fought with a fire and determination that no one had anticipated. But even with the victory of small skirmishes, the galaxy knew this war was far from over. The unseen were still out there, a mysterious and powerful enemy with technology and tactics that no one truly understood. Weeks passed, and the galaxy's combined forces regrouped. The humans, though exhausted from the first major battle, were already strategizing their next move. They knew that defeating the unseen would require more than just unconventional tactics. They needed to understand the enemy, to discover what made them so powerful, and most importantly, what their weakness was. It wasn't long before the first real clue about the unseen's true nature came to light. A small team of human scientists, working alongside members of other species, uncovered a startling discovery. The unseen, despite their overwhelming power, were not just conquerors. They were survivors. They were the remnants of a long-lost empire, a once mighty civilization that had ruled the galaxy eons ago. And now, they had returned to reclaim what they believed was theirs. The unseen were not a singular species, but rather a collective, a group of highly advanced beings who had transcended the physical form. They were creatures of pure thought, able to manipulate matter and energy at will. Their ships, their weapons, even their very existence were a product of their minds. They had evolved past the need for physical bodies, becoming beings of pure consciousness. The humans were stunned by this revelation. The unseen were not just an invading force. They were a species of unimaginable power, with abilities far beyond anything the galaxy had ever known. They could phase in and out of reality, bend space and time, and reshape matter to their will. They had returned to the galaxy after centuries in hiding, and their purpose was clear: to reclaim their lost empire. But as the humans dug deeper into the history of the unseen, something even more troubling was discovered. The unseen had not simply disappeared. They had fallen. Their empire had crumbled from within, torn apart by internal divisions and a loss of purpose. For all their power, they had destroyed themselves, unable to adapt to the changing galaxy around them. And in their return, they had not found unity, but further decay. The humans, with their drive to survive and adapt, saw an opening. While the unseen were beings of immense power, they lacked something critical: emotional depth. The unseen had evolved to such a high level of intelligence that they had abandoned their emotions, seeing them as a weakness. But humans, in their stubbornness and resilience, had never abandoned their emotions. It was their greatest strength, and the key to understanding their enemy. As the humans shared this knowledge with the galaxy's leaders, a new strategy began to form. They realized that in order to defeat the unseen, they had to strike at their weakness: emotion. The unseen could manipulate reality, but they couldn't control the emotions that powered the hearts of the galaxy's people. And in that, the humans saw hope. The galaxy now had a new understanding of their enemy. The unseen were not invincible, but fragile in their own way. It was a powerful revelation, and it gave the galaxy something they hadn't had in a long time: hope. The war was not over, but now the humans and their allies had a fighting chance. The revelation about the unseen's true nature brought new hope to the galaxy, but the war was far from over. The unseen were powerful and unpredictable. Their ability to manipulate reality and their cold, emotionless intelligence made them a formidable enemy. But the humans had learned something crucial: that the unseen, for all their strength, lacked the one thing that could break them: emotion. The humans, despite being outmatched in technology and raw power, had always relied on their ability to think differently, to push through adversity when others might give up. And now, they realized they could use their emotional strength as a weapon, something the unseen would never understand. The humans began to develop a new strategy, one that focused not on defeating the unseen in a traditional sense, but on exploiting their weaknesses. The unseen, with their advanced minds, had long since abandoned emotions as unnecessary and dangerous. They had evolved beyond the need for connection, seeing only logic and power as the driving forces of existence. But for the humans, emotions were the core of everything they did. Love, fear, hope, and even anger. These feelings drove their actions, inspired them to fight when all seemed lost, and gave them the strength to endure. With this knowledge, the humans began to train their soldiers and allies differently. They no longer just focused on tactical maneuvers or weapons. Instead, they taught their forces to harness the power of their emotions. They learned to channel their fear into courage, their anger into resolve, and their hope into a will to win. The humans knew that if they could ignite these emotions in their allies and keep their spirits strong, they could break the mental fortitude of the unseen. The battlefront changed. The humans no longer fought with just their ships and weapons. They fought with their hearts. In each skirmish, the humans inspired their allies, rallying them with speeches that reminded everyone why they were fighting. For their homes, their families, and their future. The soldiers of every species, once hesitant and divided, now stood firm together, united by the fire of their emotions. As the human-led alliance clashed with the unseen, the results were astonishing. The unseen, who had always been confident in their superiority, began to feel something they hadn't experienced in centuries: uncertainty. They could no longer predict the humans' actions, nor could they understand why the galaxy's forces were so determined. The more the humans fought, the more they exposed the cracks in the enemy's armor. The unseen were brilliant strategists, but they had no concept of hope or the human drive to protect what they loved. The humans and their allies didn't fight just for survival. They fought because they cared, because they believed in something greater than themselves, and that belief made them stronger than the unseen could ever comprehend. In one particularly intense battle, the humans executed a daring plan that involved risking everything they had to make the unseen believe they had lost. When the unseen took the bait and sent in reinforcements, the human forces turned the tables. They launched a surprise attack, striking at the heart of the enemy's fleet. The human soldiers, their hearts full of resolve, led the charge, pushing forward when others would have turned back. The unseen had underestimated the power of the human heart. Their cold logic couldn't prepare them for the raw, unpredictable strength of emotions. The humans and their allies, though outnumbered and outgunned, had found a way to fight back, not just with weapons, but with their spirit, and that was something the unseen could never defeat. As the war against the unseen raged on, the galaxy's forces were gaining ground, but the cost was steep. Every battle brought more sacrifices. Ships were lost, planets were destroyed, and lives were taken. Yet despite the heavy toll, the human strategy of using emotion as a weapon was working. The galaxy's alliance had become a force to be reckoned with, and the hope that had once seemed so distant was now growing stronger with each passing day. One particular battle marked a turning point. The unseen, for all their advanced technology and power, had underestimated one critical thing: the resilience of the human spirit. The humans had inspired their allies to fight with everything they had, to pour their hearts into the battle. And it was this fire, this raw emotion, that was slowly tipping the scales in favor of the alliance. In the middle of this pivotal battle, a human general named Captain Zora Morgan led a daring mission deep into enemy territory. Her team of soldiers, a mix of humans and soldiers from other species, had one goal: to strike at the heart of the unseen's command center, the source of their power. It was a nearly impossible task, one that no one believed could succeed. The unseen had hidden their command center in the most dangerous part of their fleet, surrounded by layers of defense and fleets of their own ships. But Zara and her team refused to be deterred. They knew that if they didn't act now, all would be lost. They slipped past the unseen's outer defenses, moving in a way that only humans and their allies could. They were small, nimble, and determined. With each move, they drew closer to their target. As they made their way deeper into enemy territory, the gravity of their mission began to settle in. They were risking everything, every life on the line. But Zara didn't let the fear take hold. Instead, she looked at her soldiers, her friends, and saw something that the unseen could never understand. She saw the power of unity, the strength of fighting for something greater than oneself. The team fought their way into the command center, where they found a startling truth. The unseen's power wasn't just in their technology. It was in their leaders, beings of pure consciousness who controlled everything through their minds. The very thing that made the unseen so powerful was also their greatest weakness. The leaders' minds were connected to everything, and if the connection was severed, their entire force would collapse. Zara made the call to carry out the most dangerous plan of all, to disconnect the leader's mental link. The humans had no idea how they would do it, but their emotional drive pushed them forward. They didn't need to understand everything, they just needed to act. With the clock ticking, they fought through waves of unseen soldiers to reach the central hub. With a final push of determination, Zara and her team succeeded. They cut the connection, severing the unseen's command structure. The effects were immediate. The unseen forces, once so coordinated and powerful, were thrown into chaos. Their ships faltered, their movements erratic, and their attacks less effective. The humans had done it. They had struck at the heart of the unseen's power, and for the first time, the galaxy's forces could see a real chance of victory. The battle was far from over, but now, the tide had turned. The unseen, for the first time, were vulnerable. And the humans had proven that even the greatest enemies could be beaten, not just with strength, but with heart. The victory at the unseen's command center sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. For the first time in the war, the unseen's invincible appearance had been shattered. Their once flawless strategy faltered, and the Alliance, led by the humans, felt a renewed sense of hope. But even as their forces celebrated the victory, they knew the final push was still ahead. The unseen were not easily defeated, and they would not give up without one last desperate fight. The humans and their allies quickly began to reorganize, preparing for what would be the most crucial battle of the entire war. The unseen, though now weakened, were still dangerous. Their remaining leaders, isolated but still powerful, began rallying their forces for one final stand. The galaxy's fleets, having suffered so much already, were ready to press forward, but they had learned one painful lesson. Victory would require everything they had, and more. Captain Zara Morgan, the hero of the Command Center strike, was once again at the forefront of the war effort. She knew the risks. She had seen the destruction, the death, and the despair that had followed every battle. But she also understood the one thing the unseen could never comprehend: unity, hope, and the will to fight for a future. This time, it wasn't just about surviving. It was about taking back what the unseen had stolen, a future for all species in the galaxy. Zara's fleet was ready. The humans, now respected leaders in the Alliance, worked side by side with their allies. Together, they had trained, learned, and adapted. The humans' resourcefulness, combined with the strength of the other species, had formed a force that was unlike anything the unseen had ever encountered. The galaxy's fleet gathered near the heart of unseen territory, poised to strike. The final battle was approaching. As the fleets gathered, the unseen began to react. Their ships, though still formidable, lacked the coordination they once had. They were slower, less precise. Without the central command that had guided them, the unseen's forces were divided. But Zara knew that they would not surrender easily. The unseen's pride was as vast as their power, and they would fight to the last. The battle began with a ferocity that rattled even the bravest soldiers. The unseen fought with everything they had left, attacking with disorienting speed and strange, unpredictable tactics. Their ships flickered in and out of existence, their weapons blurring the line between reality and illusion. Yet, despite the odds, the Alliance pushed forward. The humans led the charge, their ships darting in and out of the chaos, using their agility to outmaneuver the unseen's attacks. Their fleet was small but fast, and they knew how to make every shot count. With each strike, They disrupted the Unseen's disorganized fleet, breaking their formations and causing confusion. The Unseen were no longer the unstoppable force they once were. Zara, commanding her fleet from the front, saw the opening she had been waiting for. The remaining Unseen leaders, isolated and vulnerable, were within reach. It was time for the final strike. With a deep breath, she ordered her fleet to break off and move toward the Unseen leaders. The humans, the heart of the Alliance, would carry the weight of the galaxy on their shoulders one last time. As the fleet descended upon the Unseen's last stronghold, the galaxy's leaders held their breath. The fate of everything they had fought for hung in the balance. But Zara and her team were ready. The Unseen had underestimated the human spirit once before. Now, they would pay the price for it. The final push had begun, and nothing would stop them from securing a future for the galaxy. The final battle had reached its peak. The galaxy's forces, led by the humans, pressed forward with everything they had. Captain Zora Morgan and her fleet were in the thick of it, pushing through the chaos of the battlefield, their hearts full of purpose and resolve. The Unseen, once the dominant power in the galaxy, were now fighting a losing war. Their once unbreakable command was shattered, their forces in disarray. The time for their reign was ending. As Zara and her fleet advanced toward the Unseen's last stronghold, a sense of finality gripped the soldiers. This was it, the endgame. Every decision, every sacrifice, had led to this moment. The humans had shown the galaxy that there was more to victory than power and technology. They had proven that heart, hope, and unity could overcome even the greatest of enemies. Zara's ship, the Unity, moved through the smoke and debris of the battle, the human fleet cutting a path toward the heart of the Unseen's forces. The Unseen, though still dangerous, no longer fought with the precision they once had. Their ships flickered in and out of existence, but they lacked the organization that had made them so terrifying. The humans, with their unpredictable tactics and emotional drive, had thrown them off balance. The last Unseen stronghold loomed ahead, its dark and twisted shape standing as a symbol of their fallen empire. Zara knew that this was where it would all come down to. If they could break through and disable the central control, the Unseen would be finished. There would be no more flickering ships, no more phasing in and out of reality. The Unseen would fall, and the galaxy would be free. Zara's fleet engaged the Unseen defenses, pushing forward through the final line of defense. The Unseen fought back with all their remaining strength, but their movements were scattered and uncoordinated. The galaxy's alliance fought with a unity that was impossible for the Unseen to comprehend. They fought not just for survival, but for everything they held dear. And that made all the difference. Finally, Zora's fleet reached the core of the Unseen stronghold. The massive ships of the Unseen, once so powerful, now looked weak and vulnerable. The human strategy had worked. The Unseen were no longer invincible. With a final, decisive strike, Zara and her team infiltrated the heart of the Unseen's control center. There they found the last of the Unseen leaders, still connected to the machines that powered their fleet. But it was too late. The humans had already severed their grip on the galaxy. The control systems went dark, and the Unseen forces, without their guiding minds, began to fall apart. The battle was won. The galaxy erupted in celebration. The war was over. The Unseen, the once unstoppable empire, had been defeated. It had been a long and painful journey, but the humans and their allies had triumphed. They had fought not just for their own survival, but for the future of all life in the galaxy. Captain Zora Morgan stood on the bridge of the Unity, looking out at the stars. The galaxy was forever changed. The Unseen were gone, and a new era had begun, one where hope, unity, and the strength of the human heart had proven that even the greatest of enemies could be overcome. The humans had come to the aid of the galaxy when no other species would, and now they had secured a future for everyone. As Zara watched the stars twinkle in the distance, she knew this was only the beginning of a new chapter, one where the galaxy would stand together, stronger than ever before.